Obviously, liens have an impact on your ownership. It's basically asserting a right versus your ownership in the property. The idea being, and I think the statute actually says this, commercial owners are considered, I hate the word sophisticated, but it's kind of considered more arm's length. Hey, it's commercial property, you're doing business, you understand that the other people doing business may have some rights if there's a breach.
Thanks for joining us on another REI-NWA podcast. This is podcast episode number 30, and I'm your host, Coley Bailey, with the Lone Rock team at Fathom Realty. And today we're going to be talking for you builders and house flippers about mechanics liens and how you can avoid those on your next project and not get bogged down with all of that. And today I'm very honored to welcome Darren Gibbs. How you doing, Darren?
I'm good. Good to be here.
Yeah. And Darren is an attorney here in Northwest Arkansas, and you're actually going to be coming out to our Builder Circle on May 7th, 2024, to discuss this topic in a little more depth. But we want to get into a couple of the highlights during this episode. But before we get really too deep into that, always love to find out about our guest. So tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you got into doing what you're doing now.
Sure. Yeah. So I born and raised in Fayetteville and went to graduated from Fayetteville High School. So I'm a real local. I went to college at Centenary, which is in Shreveport, Louisiana. But then after that came back to Fayetteville for law school and graduated from Arkansas Law. I've been in practice for about 15 years. My practice is probably about 50% transactional and then 50% litigation based. And, sometimes we do transactions to avoid the litigation, and sometimes we look at transactions that cause some litigation, and one may lead to another. But so I've got a practice that deals a lot with real estate, deals a lot with, like liens, like we're going to talk about today. I deal with a lot of easement issues, contractors, builders. On the other side, I've dealt with homeowners who've had issues with their builders. So, yeah, I know we want to talk about liens today, so we can dig into the experience there if you want to.
Yeah, so just for anybody who hasn't heard of mechanics liens, can you kind of define that for the audience and dig into when those come into play, what they are, in the whole system around that?
So a lien is a way for an individual, in this case, a material supplier, a builder, somebody who's performed work on a real estate parcel. It is a way to assert a claim against the owner of that parcel for work or services or materials provided. And a lien is a way to prevent the owner of that property from selling the property without the material provider or contractor. Basically, it's a way for the material provider to assert a claim and avoid a sale of the property without, and ensure that provider gets paid. And so the lien is like a tag. It's like a flag against the property saying, hey, there's somebody out there who's got a claim against this. And we want to make sure that our rights are preserved. And so we're going to assert a claim against the property before it can be transferred, or, we can make sure that we keep our rights available in the event that this thing gets sold, and maybe we can get paid at some point.
All right. So let's say, you've got a parcel, you're building a spec house, you hire a general contractor, you're an investor, you want to build a spec house and sell it for profit. You hire a contractor, a general contractor who hires subcontractors to work on the property. Who can file those liens? So you mentioned material suppliers could do this. So if the general contractor doesn't pay, let's say the I don't know, the lumber yard or the flooring people, or they could file liens on it?
Yeah. So let's say I'm an investor and I hire, Coley Construction to build my house or renovate a house for me. The general contractor has the ability to assert a lien against the owner of the property for any bills that are unpaid.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, any subcontractors, anybody who performed work like an electrician, a plumber, a framer, drywall guy, any subcontractor hired by the general contractor could potentially assert a lien against the investor's property. A material supplier, Lowe's, Meeks, roofing company, or roofing supplier, they could also assert a lien against the property if they're not paid for the shingles they provided or the lumber that was delivered. So anybody that provides work to that and relates to that property could potentially assert a lien against that property
in the event that they aren't paid.
Right.
Yeah. So what happens if the property never sells?
So liens have a time limit.
Okay.
So backing it up a little bit, the contractor themselves or the subcontractor, the material person providing work or services, they have a limited amount of time in which they can actually assert their rights to the lien. And it's quick. So if I'm a contractor and I haven't been paid, I only have 75 days after my last date of work or service provided or materials provided to give you notice of my intent to file the lien. So if my last date of work is today, April the 25th, I have 75 days from today to tell you, look, I'm going to file this lien and give you a 10-day notice that I'm going to file the lien. And then I only have 120 days from the date of my last work in which I can actually file the lien. So 75 days for the notice and then 120 days to actually get it filed. So let's say I've met my time requirements as the contractor and I've properly filed my lien. I then have 15 months to do something about it. So if this is a new construction project, it's a house that's going to be flipped. It's a house that is brand new from the ground up. The house has been built. It's a spec house. It's been designed to sell, right? So I'm probably not going to have to do anything as the contractor other than, hope the house closes, and I'll just wait for it to close and I'll get paid at close, or I'll get paid before that so that there's no lien at close.
Right.
Let's say this is not a spec house. Let's say you're a homeowner and you've done a renovation, or maybe you close on it before the lien has been asserted. It's sometime between my final date of work and the closing date's passed, and I'm still going to assert my lien against the subsequent owner, which I can do.
Oh, okay.
I then have 15 months from the date I file the lien as the contractor to file a lawsuit on that lien. The lien gives me, the contractor, the right to foreclose on the house, which is pretty powerful. Foreclosure means I can force the sale of it at an auction. You haven't paid me. Presumably, I've not only have I filed the lien, I've probably sent you a demand letter. I've now filed a lawsuit against you. You still haven't paid me. I can force your property into foreclosure, and I'm going to get paid at an auction the value of my lien at that point before you get the equity that you have left in your house. So the lien's pretty powerful. And that doesn't mean that there aren't other causes of action you have too. I mean, you might be able to file a breach of contract or a negligence claim, or there may be something else out there. But that lien specifically gives you the right to foreclose on it. And it specifically allows the title company and subsequent owners, it lets them know that there's a cloud on the title, that there's somebody out there who's got some rights against your property.
Now, are there different types of mechanics liens? For instance, residential versus commercial, things like that?
The lien itself in this context is the same. The process might be a little bit different to get the lien, though. And so the process for getting a lien is a little bit different if it's a commercial project versus if it's a residential project. Residential projects are those that are considered four units or less. So if I'm going to build on one parcel and it's going to be a, multi-unit apartment complex with, say, 20 units, that's commercial.
Mm-hmm.
It's 3 row houses on a third of an acre, which is pretty common these days. That would still be considered residential.
Okay.
The differences are the notice that I have to give you, the owner, before I can assert the lien. So obviously liens have an impact on your ownership. It's basically asserting a right versus your ownership in the property. And so I've got to do all of this stuff correctly if I'm the contractor. I've got to give my notice correctly. If it's a residential project, I've got to give you a notice of my right to file a lien before I ever do any work. If it's a commercial project, the rule is different. I don't actually have to give you a notice before I can assert my right to file the lien. The idea being, and I think the statute actually says this, commercial owners are considered, I hate the word sophisticated, but it's kind of considered more arm's length. Hey, it's commercial property. You're doing business. You understand that the other people doing business may have some rights if there's a breach. Residential owners may be considered a little bit different. And if I'm a contractor or I'm a subcontractor, if I want to file a lien, an important notice, it's actually called an important notice to owner, has to be delivered to that owner before I ever start work. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I will lose the right to file a lien. So if I'm an investor and I am having a house renovated and prepared to sell, and I've hired a contractor and the contractor's got his own subs, that general contractor, if he's wise, and I think this is a builder circle group, right? So if I'm
right, yeah.
Builders, give that important notice to the owner before you ever start. That notice will benefit your subs as well. So if I'm an electrician and I'm doing some subcontracted labor for a general contractor, I can rely on the notice of the right to assert a lien that's been provided by one of the other contractors on the project. So if my general contractor has provided that notice, I'm good. I can still file my lien. But if the general doesn't give that important notice, the electrician doesn't give that important notice, and then all of a sudden nobody's been paid, that electrician may be out of luck. They may not be able to file a lien against the homeowner anyway. Doesn't mean that there aren't other things that the electrician can do or another sub can do, but may not be able to file a lien because the specific process wasn't followed.
I see. All right. Well, this is an interesting, I could see there are a lot of cases that probably come up with this. The general public definitely doesn't have any idea all of these specifics that you've just gone through, even in this just last, 10 minutes here. And so we're going to have a full discussion about this at the Builder Circle on May 7th, 2024. It is going to be at the Golden Corral in Rogers. Doors open at 5:30. We start our networking and the program here with Darren at 6. And as usual, it's $0 at the door if you are an REI-NWA member, and you get the recording in the back end of your account at REI-NWA.com. But if you're not a member, definitely come on out and join us as well. It's $20 at the door. We'd love to have you. So Darren, I'm really looking forward to this. Thanks for chatting with us just a little bit today. We'll see you at the Builder Circle.
That sounds good. I look forward to the meeting.
Yep. And what is the name of your law firm, and how can people get in touch with you if they have any legal questions?
Yeah, so I am a partner in a firm called MGW Law Partners.
Okay.
And I can be contacted by phone at 479-521-7050. My email address is dgibbs@arklaw.net.
Sounds good. All right. Well, Darren, again, thanks for joining us today. Thanks to you guys, audience, for joining us. And we will catch you on the next episode of REI-NWA Podcast.